Hello, everybody. Long time no see, but fear not, we are back. Hello, Sean. How are you?
I am good. I am good. It is lovely to see you. Full disclosure, we are recording this 2 months to the day after Wish World aired. Where has that 2 months gone?
I know, it feels like it was yesterday, but also
Right?
in this current climate, it feels like it was years ago.
Yeah, that's
There's just so much. It's a weird situation at the moment, isn't it? It's kind of like so up in the air, so much confusion, so many questions, so much uncertainty. And obviously, I'm imagining that people can gauge from the title of this video that that's kind of what we're going to talk about a little bit in this video. But I think the thing is here, everyone's kind of got a little bit bogged down on the fact that we haven't had any answers. But I think we need to look on the bright side and be a little bit optimistic here, because I don't think there should be much doubt that Doctor Who is gonna be back. The show is going to come back. I think the thing at the moment is more a question of how it's going to come back and where it's going to be. So there are lots of potential streamers that could pick up Doctor Who moving forwards. And that's kind of what we want to look at here. All these different streamers that could go, hey, we'll take you on. And I think let's just get straight into it and start with the first one, which there has been a bit of talk about lately, which is HBO Max.
HBO Max, HBO Max, HBO Max. What are we calling it these days? Yes, HBO Max, which obviously, because I mean, easy answer is they carried it before.
Yeah. They had modern Doctor Who. Lots of questions about why Disney only had the new stuff and they didn't have any of, when I say like the old stuff, I mean, 2005 up to the 60th. They have a pre-existing relationship with Doctor Who, but that deal is set to come to an end at the end of this month. So then the question is, will they renegotiate for that back catalogue and then fund future seasons and have it all? But at the same time, because that deal has come to a close, they might just part ways with it, but then that could be a positive for other networks moving forward. It's a very good selling point for the BBC moving forward to try and market the rest of, or the future of the show, while also going, hey, but you've also got all of this that's up for grabs as well. But in terms of the network as a whole, they are known for having very high quality premium programming. Things like Game of Thrones, franchises like the Harry Potter franchise, all those sorts of big things. So in terms of that, I mean, Doctor Who would fit in nicely with those other big name franchises.
HBO prestige television. That's kind of what they've always built themselves as that. Back, we're going like Sex and the City, The Sopranos, The Wire, 6 Feet Under, all these kind of things as well. Like HBO, to be fair, have a pretty good track record when it comes to the shows that they make. Now, if they're involved in making Doctor Who, I think what we'll do is we'll see a difference again. I think Disney's stamp, and I enjoyed these last couple of years of Doctor Who very, very much so. But I think you can also see Disney's, sort of aesthetic on it a little bit. And I think that we would see a change again, which itself is very much in the nature of Doctor Who. Like Russell T's first run looks like, as you watch the episode, looks quite different from Moffat's run, looks quite different from Chibnall's run. So that's cool. That might just look different. Who knows? I suppose it comes down to your director as well after that. It being a streamer of what I think, much like Disney, it being a streamer, you get worldwide asterisks availability to it. Again, hi guys, the Republic of Ireland exists. Just reminding everyone. So yeah, I think when you have runs like things like their miniseries are incredible. I would be an HBO fan in terms of the stuff that they've put out there when I can see it, and that pre-existing thing.
They've got a subscriber count of around 122 million, but that goes across various streaming services that are all part of Warner Brothers Discovery. So you've got HBO Max, you've got Discovery Plus, you've got Legacy HBO as well. So I guess that if you're just looking at HBO Max itself, then that's probably got a significantly less subscriber count than when you look at it as a whole. So it's definitely going to be less than if it is on something like Disney, as it has been, or Netflix, which we'll get onto in a second. So I guess it depends on what it is that the BBC, Bad Wolf, if they are going for a new partnership, it depends what it is they're looking for. Is it the reach? Is it the funding? Is it the kind of influence that they're going to have on the show? It depends on the kind of criteria of what they're looking for in a partnership and what works best for them, I would say.
Absolutely. I mean, that is the hard and fast rule of business: is how does this help me? And we would be slightly naive if we were to think that doesn't play a part of negotiations, but that's fine. That's part of every negotiation. Just before we even discuss another one, Bad Wolf as well. This is sort of assuming Bad Wolf stays on, which we've no reason to think that it won't. I think it sort of feeds back into the overall question of sort of what's happening next.
It just makes me laugh that a studio that's literally named after something in Doctor Who might not continue with the show that literally it wouldn't exist without.
There is a bit of that. And actually, one of the things about that last Unleashed episode that I did like was how it highlights how sort of more Doctor Who on a wider scale, but obviously Bad Wolf as well, have seriously benefited the economy of Wales.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is just fabulous, and that's one thing I know as we discuss all of these streamers here. I would like to see production sort of stay in the UK. I think you've talked about this a lot as well. Doctor Who, its Britishness is part of its identity.
Yeah. And I do feel like that maybe is a good way for us to jump into the next streamer, which is Disney Plus. I do think that there are a few elements in the newer stuff that does make me feel like you're removing that quintessential Britishness from it. You can just see moments where you can really see that Disney influence, and it takes away from, for me, what makes Doctor Who so special, because that deep British culture that's within it is part of it. But yeah, in terms of Disney, obviously, I think at this point you'd assume that an announcement would have been made by now if Disney were renewing the partnership. But it's not entirely off the table. It's not entirely ruled out. It just does feel a little bit like if you were just continuing with renewing a contract that already exists, why has it taken this long for any announcements to be made? I mean, on the positive side, it was a good fit for Doctor Who in terms of global family branding. It's done good things for the franchise with regards to that. I mean, if you look at now, we've got literally just been promoted from the beginnings of San Diego Comic-Con. You've got the Barbie dolls, so you've got a Barbie Mattel collaboration with Doctor Who, which is probably down to the Disney partnership and the Disney influence. Again, as we said, the back catalogue is now up for grabs. So would that perhaps change the minds of Disney moving forward, that they could continue with the deal they've got and acquire the stuff they couldn't get beforehand? Let's not also forget that we have The War Between the Land and the Sea, which is still going to be coming out on Disney. So obviously there is an existing relationship there, but it does feel like if that were going to be where the show was continuing, it would have been announced at this point.
I feel so, because I feel like it was a contributing factor to Ncuti's exit, was that, it hadn't been announced. Because for all we know, I mean, this is the fun bit of theorizing. For all we know, like that's been sitting on a desk for the last year and a half, and it's all been about ironing out numbers. And it could have, and it's just because we don't know, we're not in the room, which is obviously very, very frustrating from our point of view. But we know as well, Disney and the BBC, there doesn't seem to be any fear whatsoever them parting ways. Now, whether Disney and Doctor Who keep a relationship, which I know might sound a bit like, hang on, what's he on about? So, wasn't it recent? And you might have to just help me out here. It wasn't the head of the BBC, when interviewed recently, said, it was basically completely crying how wonderful the relationship between BBC and Disney is. Now, the wording was clever. It was, although the interview was kind of framed around Doctor Who, he never mentioned Doctor Who once.
Yeah, it was very much on a broader scale.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, what we need to remember here. Just because Disney and the BBC might still partner together in various projects, Doctor Who has been very carefully omitted from any of those discussions, which, again, I feel like speaks volumes.
And it's savvy, because you don't want to say something too early that then either spoils something down the way in terms of either plans or whatever, and or gives a false impression that gets somebody's back up and says, well, actually now it's off the table because you released something too early. It's the boring side of corporate.
Yeah. But I also feel like because they can't be unaware of the fact that everyone is kind of getting a little bit agitated by this lack of information, this uncertainty. I do feel like if they were moving ahead with Disney, they would have made that announcement, if for nothing else, for a bit of reassurance. Even if they wanted to keep it secret, I think if they'd seen the uncertainty and kind of the fact that everyone's getting a bit, whoa, what's going on here, they would have made that announcement to kind of, let everybody know that you don't need to panic. But the fact that they haven't tells me that there's bigger conversations happening. And I think that Disney is not a contender. I mean, it is a shame. They are one of the biggest streamers in the game. To get them in the first place, everyone was like, wow, this is going to do wonders for the show. And to some regard, it has. But in others, such as, removing that kind of quirky Britishness of the show, maybe has affected the show, maybe not quite so positively. Pros and cons on both sides.
For sure.
But perhaps, we don't know what's been happening in conversations behind closed doors. We don't know whether this was a Disney decision, whether this was a BBC decision, if it's a decision at all. But there are other options.
There absolutely are.
This one, I think, again, there are pros and cons for this one. I think personally, this is where I would maybe put my money on if I was a gambling woman. Netflix. Obviously, Modern Doctor Who used to be on Netflix UK. Up until a couple of years ago, you could watch Modern Who on Netflix UK. I think it was on Netflix US. I don't know quite when. I could be completely wrong. I don't know, but it definitely was on Netflix UK. So again, pre-existing relationship with the show. So that is always a bonus. And then, as I've mentioned in all of them, the back catalogue is now up for grabs again. So if they've had it before, they might now have looked at the success that it has been having and go, that's something we should maybe grab again. And then continue funding the future of the show. Now, sorry, did you have something to add there?
I just did a Google there. Apparently, up until 2016, Netflix US did have Doctor Who up till about season 9. I don't know if season 10 landed on US.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a while ago anyway.
It was on Netflix in various places in the past. So the thing about Netflix is that on the one hand, it does have actually a good reputation for kind of saving shows, which is not to say necessarily that Doctor Who needs to be saved, but I think maybe they're a good one to kind of take a chance and grab it, even though there is this uncertainty. This has something that's happened, something we're very familiar with Star Trek Prodigy recently. Paramount decided to scrap it. Season 2 was pretty much coming to the close of post-production and then had nowhere to go. It was pretty much made and then had nowhere to stream. And Netflix picked up season 1 and aired season 2. And that was absolutely brilliant. It was a show that deserved to be seen, and Netflix saved the day. Then there's a downside to this because Netflix also has a reputation for cancelling shows willy-nilly. They don't necessarily give shows a chance to really blossom before they just cut ties with it and let it go. So that can be quite risky. And sticking with Prodigy, this is again something that did happen with Prodigy. They were the saviors. They saved it. They showed the season that was otherwise going to be made and then shown to nobody. But then when fans were asking for a season 3, they haven't renewed it for a third season, and the contract is up and they are not renewing seasons 1 and 2. So season 1 and 2 will now be taken off. So all in all, I think Prodigy was on Netflix for just over a year.
I think so. I think it's really important that we discuss this example because the pro to Netflix is exactly what you've just said. You know, because of Netflix, that show got aired. And I know there's other shows as well that Netflix have stepped in and, were able to show. But what they didn't do was commit to making new content with it. And this then brings us back to Doctor Who, which is, if the deal is make new Doctor Who content and then absorb the existing content, because as far as we know, outside of the UK, Doctor Who at least will stay on Disney, whether or not it airs anymore. It seems it doesn't look like it's leaving Disney anytime soon. But let's say that or something, or comes to an end. It will all come down to, we'll make new stuff if we can get subscribers out of it, because that's the business model at the moment. It's about getting new eyes, which makes, if they weren't going to be and this goes across all of the streamers, if they weren't going to be making new Who, I think it's very unlikely they would take on the back catalogue.
Yeah, I think whoever agrees to continue making new stuff will then get the benefit of the back catalogue.
That would be how I would look at it. And I know Disney didn't do that, but that is, as we said earlier on, I think there is still, or at least there was still, no, there is, because it ends at the end of this month. HBO had the streaming rights. So as frustrating as it is that it's on different services, and it is frustrating, at least it made sense that as to why there was a barrier there.
Yeah.
If, let's say, the HBO one comes to an end of this month and things do change over at Disney and suddenly the whole catalogue is up for grabs, I think that would be part of a negotiation for making new episodes going forward. I think when the announcement comes, it's going to be a big announcement.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, so Netflix, is the biggest streamer in the game at the moment. It is the biggest one out there. It's got 300 million subscribers, or it did at the end of 2024. So on the plus side, you want Doctor Who to be on a show, on a streaming network that's going to get the most eyeballs on it. But downside being, they are the biggest, they know they're the biggest, and so they kind of can make the decisions that mean, we'll keep that, we'll cut that. The reason they're making so much money is because they are ruthless in cutting things that aren't profiting them, which is not so great. I don't know. I in the back of my mind, I think Netflix maybe is probably a strong contender, but at the same time, knowing what happened with Prodigy in particular, it does concern me.
No, I know. Same, like here in Ireland, on Netflix here, we have everything from the original series up to Enterprise of Star Trek.
Yes.
Which is great. I'm delighted. But we don't have anything outside of that. Over on Prime, you have Picard, and then and now, of course, Prodigy up until the end of this year. You'll have season 2, and then everything else on Paramount. So it's a bit like you've diluted your audience is the first thing. So I think that's another thing as well, Liz. One of the more attractive ways of any streamer taking on Who is bring your whole audience with.
All of it, yeah. And that is the frustrating thing about Trek at the moment, is you have to kind of go across 3 or 4 different streaming platforms to get it, which also means you have to pay for all those streaming platforms to get the whole body of work. And that is not, we're living in a time of financial crisis, people having to make cuts, and a lot of the time that comes down to, well, I can't afford to pay for all these streaming services. So if it's all on one, that's way, way better.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
Now there's another one that, to be honest, I hadn't really thought about. It is maybe one of the smaller streamers in terms of the subscribers, but definitely not in terms of money, is Apple TV.
Apple TV was an outlier. I hadn't considered that. Now it does make some really good stuff.
Ted Lasso, brilliant.
Foundation.
Yeah. They've made some brilliant programs. They've spent $5 billion per year on content since 2019. So I don't think money is necessarily the biggest obstacle for Apple TV. So, Doctor Who for them would be pocket money. It would literally...
You keep buying their phones, they'll keep making stuff.
Probably a positive and a negative, I guess, is that, they are still trying to grow and trying to get kind of a major foothold in the market of streaming at the moment. So I think for them, a positive would be great to have something like Doctor Who, an iconic brand like Doctor Who, to kind of better compete with something like Netflix with Disney. They don't really at the moment have something like that they're really known for and can really market. They have some great stuff on there, but it's not quite such a big thing, like things like
Severance, I think,
Disney.
is their big
Yeah,
one recently, and of course For All Mankind. I mean, sci-fi fans are eating well at the moment.
yeah.
Um,
I guess on the downside for Doctor Who, it's maybe not such a popular streaming service. So again, it all depends on what it is that the BBC are looking for in the partnership. But unlike something like Netflix or Prime or even Disney, Doctor Who might not be so buried under so much content because Apple TV doesn't have quite so much of a back catalogue. There's a lot less content on Apple TV. So you'd think that they'd probably, put more attention, give a bit more of a kind of red carpet treatment to something like Doctor Who, to be there kind of like, this is what we've got now, come over to here because look, we've got this. But yeah, again, in terms of exposure, you might not get so much of that because they aren't one of the bigger streaming services.
yeah, it can go. I think there's a lot of positivity with going in a slightly small. It's funny because you're right. It is a smaller service, but it's also Apple. Like
mm,
money they have. And which is fun, and also because we spoke about this in a previous video as well. One of the reasons Who was as expensive as it was, and then it took so long, is because of Disney, it was all in 4K. And I'm not saying I want it back at 720p or anything like that, but that's a post-production cost,
yeah.
which is trimmable. I know we're all in the age now. It's a good look again. It's a good age. Things look good at the moment, but like.
I don't watch Rose or anything that came out in 2005 and particularly look at it and go, oh, this is awful quality. Obviously, there are better quality things now because the technology is available to do so. I might look at some of the CGI and VFX and go, that's maybe not aged so well because we've improved upon it. But I don't watch those episodes and think they look really bad.
No.
We've just been spoilt now with the quality that we can have, that I think it becomes kind of an expectation.
There's also cameras are better. Like the initial image you're working with is sharper now as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. Yeah, we were talking about this. I was doing my rewatch there when the series ended. I sort of like in a week and a half, I powered through the first 3 seasons, and there's a fun mid-2000s quality to it. Which I'm saying because I was there. I mean, maybe somebody watching it now for the first time might be like, you can keep your mid-2000s quality. Like, I'm going to stick with the 4K. Thanks very much.
Like,
and
I
you know
am
what?
aware that I do watch it through the kind of rose-tinted nostalgia glasses. I am aware of that. But I still feel like even without that, it just still does hold up. It's maybe that, I don't know, maybe it would be interesting to hear someone's viewpoint who didn't grow up watching it.
I think really good. I would love to speak to someone who's like watching, or even like, because Rose is the great kind of jump in point. I think because there's that expectation of classic Who that it's going to look like it was made as it was, in the 80s and before. There is just that expectation, right? You're dealing with a very different production at that point. I was after this is so off topic, but sorry, but after I think it was no after the Interstellar Song Contest, I went and watched Dimensions in Time, and the copy I found was on YouTube.
Yep.
And it looked like a copy that you would find. It's obviously taped. Somebody had taped over version of it and uploaded it to YouTube. And I'm just like, at the same time, I watched EastEnders in the 90s. Do you know what? I remember when that was cutting edge imagery. It's like, wow, it's so clear. You can nearly see the fact they have hair. But
I think for me, though,
mental aggression.
I think, as I've been saying this for basically the entirety of the previous couple of seasons, I think that the focus needs to be on the quality of the storytelling and the characters over the high-tech VFX and all of the fancy things that having a Disney budget allowed them to do. And I think there was a little bit of kind of a lack of balance in making sure that the things that should have been focused on were kind of put second to let's show off the fact that we've got this big budget all of a sudden and use these big effects and big sets, and I wouldn't be mad if it went to a streamer with less money that's going to kind of reprioritize what the focus should be on.
It's like, spoiler, a ranking video of all of the 15th Doctor's era has just dropped on the channel. And I discuss some of the things I really, 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 really liked about this season. And one of my favorite episodes is The Story in the Engine. If you took out the scenes with Anansi, that episode does not change in its quality. And that's a few people standing in a barbershop.
Exactly. I think too much focus has been on how can we make this look like we've got Disney money when I don't care. I don't care how much money you throw at it. I'm quite happy for you to go back to always filming in a quarry, for you to have silly looking rubber aliens, as long as the story is a good story and the characters are written well and the relationships are believable. And I think that was maybe sacrificed in favor of these fancy things to show off the budget. So I'm hoping that when they renegotiate with whoever they're going to, that is a conversation that's had. I think there's one more, which is Prime Video, Amazon Prime. So in 2021, it was reported they had over 200 million subscribers. So quite big. They've got a large audience, and they've also had some very big fantasy franchises, The Rings of Power, The Wheel of Time. So similar to HBO.
As you're saying that, there's a large portion of the audience who just felt a knife go through their ribs because The Wheel of Time was just been cancelled. Which is, so I only just got it. Well, I'm part of the problem. I only just got into it this year. And that is so Prime. I didn't mean to interrupt you there. Sorry. Prime is because Prime has been running around in my head a lot, because I do think that it is both quite likely, and also it's a great one for making things. It's also a great one for hosting things. Yeah. Prime, I think, of all of these, Prime would be the most likely to pick up the back catalogue. Now, whether or not they commit to a new series, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. The back catalogue is up for grabs, so any of these could be a contender because of that lovely bargaining chip that's hanging there. Technically, Doctor Who is already on Prime via digital purchase, so you have to pay for it, but you can actually get it on Prime Video. So they already have kind of some metrics in terms of Doctor Who. But similar to Apple, Amazon has more money than God. So pocket money change to fund Doctor Who again. Like, it's nothing to them. Drop in the ocean. But again, I don't know. Would they be good for hosting? I mean, honestly speaking, Disney was a good place to have the show. When I try to think about where would be a better place to have it, I think Disney probably was the best fit. And now that we're comparing all of these, I do feel like of them all, Disney what did make the most sense. I just feel like, obviously, we've spoken about the pros and cons of that deal, and I honestly don't think that's going to be moving forwards. It's a weird one, isn't it? I kind of get the impression that things like maybe Apple, things like Prime, tend to host more kind of adult-focused things.
Yeah, definitely Apple. Definitely Apple. They like their catalog. It's fantastic. It's niche. And I'm enjoying what there's a series I just watched called Murderbot, which if you've seen it, it's so good. Definitely adult. And good fun sci-fi. As I say, sci-fi fans are eating well on Apple. Prime, again, I think adult, but they're more, because they are the great retailer that they are. They do have this huge net that they're out there, which is one of the problems with Prime that I find is, when you go in scrolling, good luck.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of choice, but also, I mean, there's no logic to it.
No, and I think also the way it's set out as well is it's very easy to end up accidentally paying for something because it's not always clear what's on Prime Video for free as part of your subscription and what you're going to end up paying for as a digital purchase. So that
really
could be an issue.
Get a setting that would make that stuff that you could hide That's the if you wanted to look for the rental, you could go grumble. Because I've seen a lot of people recently. This discussion is currently happening about why am I paying and then paying again anyway.
Yeah. But the one thing that I guess is maybe a positive of the fact that these services don't necessarily have or are more focused on maybe adult content and things is that by getting Doctor Who, you then open yourself up to a wider audience.
Yes.
Which is obviously a good selling point. Whereas Disney is already a family-oriented service. Something like Netflix has something for all. If Apple were to get something that's more family-oriented, then perhaps they might bring in more subscribers because of that.
Whereas I would say, just my personal opinion, of the ones that we've listed today, the one that would have the least family appeal is HBO Max.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, I've never used HBO Max.
There is some incredible stuff. I mean, it's HBO. HBO makes good stuff. But a lot of it is, like I said, that prestige television that's aimed at an adult audience. And which to me would make Doctor Who a weird fit. For it to be the only home of it. Again, they did host it. They are currently hosting it. So this, that could change. I just think for making New Who, that could be interesting. Plus, it'd be very funny to see, what would an HBO version of Doctor Who look like? Instead of a sonic screwdriver, he's got an AK-47, or.
It does make me think if there's all these things flying around lately about Danny Dyer being the next Doctor, and I feel like if it's on HBO, I feel like that could totally work.
Yeah, all right. It's from Gallifrey, innit?
I'd love to see it, honestly. If that's the direction they go in,
give me a comic relief. Give me anything. Give me a version of that. And yeah,
they did. They had a little clip that he recorded on Radio 2 this week. And it was brilliant. And then Russell T Davies confirming that Danny Dyer is not the Doctor.
Oh, Russell.
So there's one other that I think it's highly unlikely, but we haven't really discussed again, is Paramount Plus.
Yes.
To be honest, I think as it stands at the moment, Paramount Plus is in a bit of an iffy situation at the moment. It's very up in the air in terms of that service. And there's a bit of concern about things like Star Trek on that service at the moment. So I think in terms of going towards Paramount at the moment, it probably wouldn't be a very good fit because you're already in a time of uncertainty for Doctor Who. So to then bring it to the one streaming service at the moment that is also having its own issues probably wouldn't go down so well in terms of security of the future of the show.
I agree. I think until the merger is settled, I don't see any big announcements there. But less so from Paramount. I'd say Paramount would be delighted. Be like, great, we'll have that audience, no problem at all. It's the production company, but thank you for your letter.
We're looking for security of the show at the moment, so that probably wouldn't be a great fit. Now, the only other option, and to be honest, it's something that I would not be mad about, but obviously in terms of production, they need to make sure they have the funding and things, but I would not be mad if it went back to being a BBC-produced show. If they didn't go looking for a new partner for a streaming service, I understand why they're doing that in terms of reaching a wider audience. You've got to have the views now to keep it going. You need the investment to, and the budget, but as we were saying, I wasn't mad about watching Doctor Who in 2005, in the mid-2000s, the early 2010s, when it didn't have this humongous budget. And I'd be perfectly happy for it to go back to a BBC budget and focus on the things that used to make it so wonderful. And just get rid of all of this.
Oh, this uncertainty. I mean, look, I completely agree with the logic. I think that's the least likely of all of the options, because at the end of the day, it will come down to money. And when we were watching it when we were younger, just the sheer amount of Doctor Who merchandise and DVD and Blu-ray sales, which don't really happen anymore. So you don't have that revenue stream, which is one of the things that led them to looking for another partner, is that it wouldn't then cost the BBC so much to make it. And that is not to sound doom and gloom. That is, kind of a way of going, well, then look at your costs. You know what I mean?
Now, the only other thing that could help in that situation is that Sony Pictures Television is a majority stakeholder in Bad Wolf. So maybe Sony could step in terms of investment for Doctor Who, but it would stay on Disney Plus, not Disney Plus,
Sure.
the other one. What's the one I'm looking for? BBC iPlayer.
BBC iPlayer, yeah. Which,
Um,
and I mean, look, and then that just brings us back to where we were pre-Disney. Do you know what I
yeah.
mean? So, and
The only thing being, and I think we don't want to step backwards in terms of this, is that when it's only available on BBC iPlayer, it's only available in the UK.
so we've talked about this before. So I'm not sure how BBC America works in terms of rights, because obviously this came up as there's the license fee, which funds things like Unleashed and funds things which are kind of iPlayer exclusive. That's all paid by the license fee. And I totally and Tales of the TARDIS. And I completely understand that only being available in the territory where it's being funded. Look, I can be frustrated all I like, but I understand it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to Doctor Who itself, I don't see it only going back to iPlayer just for the simple thing of iPlayer doesn't do advertisements. I've no idea how iPlayer sustains itself. I really don't. If it's only the license fee, okay. But wow. You know what I mean? So I can't see that being the only home of a show that now has such universal appeal. I mean,
Yeah.
I know it has for a long time as well, don't get me wrong, but it is so well known that people want to watch this show. The simple fact of thank you everyone who is watching this video is proof that there are people out there who like watching Doctor Who, like talking about Doctor Who, like engaging about Doctor Who, and that they are not entirely confined to the UK.
Yeah. I think the nostalgia part of me is like, just go back to how it was. It was fine before how it was. But in terms of realistically, I think maybe, yeah, go back to how it was. But maybe, yeah, if you had Sony Pictures helping there in terms of investment, and then in terms of kind of reaching out to give exclusive streaming rights to one of those platforms, perhaps that could be a way round. So someone like Netflix doesn't fund the creation of future seasons, but has a deal made where they get the streaming rights for it, perhaps as a way forward. It's all very confusing. It's all very up in the air. And as we've been saying the whole time, there's so much uncertainty about where this is going to go. If I was to make a guess, I mean, I said it earlier, I think perhaps Netflix, Apple TV, I think would be a good fit. I just worry about the fact that it's not got much of a reach. And also I also want to kind of also think about which streaming services are the most people likely to have. Netflix, I feel like the majority of people have Netflix. I don't necessarily think Apple TV is something people would get unless there was something specific they wanted to watch. I only got Apple TV because I wanted to watch Ted Lasso. But I have not really watched anything else on there. So in terms of like the likelihood of you want to go on a streaming service that the most people are likely to have, Disney and Netflix, maybe Prime are probably
they'd be
the
three, yeah.
So if we rule out Disney, because I think that's dead and buried, I would say, yeah, maybe Netflix, maybe Prime, but again, I'm not sure it's the right fit. But I think, yeah, the top three would be Netflix, Apple TV, and Prime.
Yeah. And I mean, it's very, very as kind of we want the answer. It's interesting because we're watching in real time, kind of like, all right, there's so many big. Do you know what it's kind of like, people of a certain age will remember a time when, there was things like syndication and there was things like, I've lost the name of it now, but kind of the network battles. It's similar but different in that it was, your terrestrial television where you had your networks like NBC, UPN, things like that, and battling to try and say, right, you're going to watch our stuff, you're going to watch our, because it's the same thing, it's just digital. And it's really interesting. And it's got a generally wider reach because streaming generally has a much wider audience. And it is interesting, as frustrating as the whole bloody thing is, everyone's also learning in real time how to do this. With, because at least back in those days when you had things like, kind of, watch our show, you didn't have all the international battles the way that we do now. Because even, like, well, obviously, iPlayer is the great example of, to be streaming here and on Disney worldwide. Yeah, but what about this property? We don't have an answer for that. What about this area? We don't have an answer for that. And I'm sure there's many, many people in many, many rooms just going, my head is so sore. Can we just pick one? Can we just get an answer and go forward with this?
Yeah, it is territories are so confusing. Like, I didn't realize for a long time that like Netflix here would be different to Netflix in the US and they'd have different things. Like, I'd go on holiday and put Netflix on and be like, this isn't usually on Netflix.
Right, right.
Yeah. It is a lot of things that are way above our pay grade. A lot of conversations, lots of licensing, lots of rights issues, all these different things. But I think that the positive thing, the thing we want to look at here is that Doctor Who is coming back. It's just
For
a question
sure.
of
I've no
where
question.
and when.
That's it.
But yeah, but I'd be interested. Let us know in the comments of this video of these options which you think is the most likely to be where Doctor Who ends up. Or if there's one we've missed, let us know. I've tried to think if there's any other really obvious ones that we've missed. I can't
Bring
think of
Doctor
any.
Who to Shudder. The horror fans want to eat good.
Oh God. I know I've said I want it to be a bit scarier, but I draw the line at it being so scary that even I can't watch it.
Oh yeah, every episode of horror episode, the Doctor's past completely coming back to confront him every single time. Regeneration goes wrong. Oh, the possibilities.
Oh dear. I think we should wrap this up before we go into the world of Doctor Who as a horror film. But yes, we will obviously, when news comes out about this, we will of course let you know. Hopefully sooner rather than later, but who knows? We do have a kind of time frame for the War Between the Land and the Sea now. It was recently announced that it was amongst the autumn listings for BBC. So sooner than we thought it was going to be. I think the earliest I thought was it was going to be Christmas, but maybe next year. But it looks like we will be getting that autumn this year. We don't know exactly when yet, but again, once we know that, we will let you know. Hopefully we'll have some trailers and information for that coming in the upcoming months, which is very exciting. We're very looking forward to that. And then, yeah, we'll see what happens, but let's stay optimistic. It'll be back. It'll be back.
Look, Doctor Who has been dead several times, and it doesn't stay dead.
No.
That's one thing that's a constant. Plus, I mean, there's nothing announced, but San Diego Comic-Con is this weekend. If there's any announcements, we will let you know.
Absolutely. I know it was a while, but we'll try not to leave it so long this time. And we'll see you when we see you. Thank you for joining me, Sean, and everyone take care of yourself.
Thanks for keeping it. We'll be all right.
Bye.